So the Asus ROG Ally has been out for close to a month now, and it's Asus's entry into the gaming PC handheld market, going up against other devices like the Steam Deck. Mine here comes with the AMD Ryzen Z1 Extreme processor, and I've been using it as my main gaming platform ever since I got it on launch day. And I've got to say, I've had a lot of fun playing games on it, especially because you can get Xbox Game Pass on here. So I've been trying out a plethora of games from different genres and seeing how they perform on the ROG Ally. But it hasn't been all smooth sailing with this device. I did run into a few issues that were quite frankly annoying, like having slow read and write speeds with the same brand micro SD card that I use on my Steam Deck. And when I'm playing Cyberpunk, for some reason, the right trigger doesn't function at all because it's not registering my input when I press it. I can't shoot in the game, but all the other buttons function well, so I'm not really sure what's going on there. So yeah, I think it's very important that I mention these issues because this device is pretty expensive. It's more than a PS5, it's more than a Series X, and it's more than a base Steam Deck. But when this device is working well, I'm pretty impressed by the kind of performance that you're able to get out of this handheld, like playing Black Ops 2 at over 100 FPS, playing Battlefield 3 at over 60 FPS, or playing Halo Reach at a pretty much solid 60 FPS, and these are numbers I was able to get while on the performance operating mode, so these aren't even turbo mode numbers. One of the best things about the Asus ROG Ally is the screen. It features a 16:9 7-inch touchscreen LCD panel with a max brightness of 500 nits and a resolution of 1080p and a buttery smooth 120Hz refresh rate. It also has AMD FreeSync Premium to help prevent screen tearing and stuttering during gameplay, which is great because that's something that can really detract from having a good gaming experience. Lastly, this screen covers 100% of the RGB range, so colors will look accurate. For reference, the Steam Deck screen only covers about 70% of the RGB spectrum, so if you guys haven't seen a screen that covers a high RGB range like this, you'll definitely be in for a treat. The ROG Ally's design is ergonomic, light, and comfortable, and it just gives me straight gamer vibes. It gives off a clean but aggressive look at the same time. And the RGB lighting around the sticks looks a lot better in person than it does on videos, and it has two sharp looking speakers on the front. And you might notice that the buttons on the front are very similar to what you'll find on an Xbox controller. They even share the same menu and view button symbols. Right below these buttons sits the Armory Crate button. Pressing this allows you to view your game library as well as the many different launchers you'll have installed because this is still a gaming PC after all. You can also adjust some settings in here like your manual operating mode wattage, GPU settings, the screen visuals, and edit the different options in the command center. Speaking of the command center, this is the command center button. Pressing this will bring out a quick settings menu where you can quickly toggle between the different operating modes, FPS limiter, keyboard, and more. It has the same hybrid D-pad from the Xbox controller, except this one has a membrane feel instead of the tactile one you'll find on the Xbox controller. This is one of my favorite D-pads because it's easy to move your thumb across it to press the different directions, and the ABXY buttons function well. I haven't had the sticky button issue that some reviewers were having prior to the release of the ROG Ally. The thumbsticks are a bit smaller than full-size thumbsticks, but I think they're pretty good. They're very smooth to move around and they have rubber all around for grip. And they also have a capacitive sensor in both of the thumbsticks, which can be useful for activating things like gyro, but there currently isn't an easy and user-friendly way of activating gyro on the ROG Ally like there is on the Steam Deck, but there is a great video by the Fox showing how to activate it using Handheld Companion, which I'll link down in the video description. The top is where you'll find the power button, which has a fingerprint sensor embedded in it, volume up and down rockers, Type-C port for charging. Right beside that is the external GPU port. That's right, you can hook up an external GPU to the ROG Ally, which can boost its performance to insane levels, but they are very pricey. Right beside that is the micro SD card slot and the 3.5mm headphone jack. Now let's go back and talk about the micro SD card slot. It's placed in a really bad spot because it's right next to the heat exhaust vent, which gets really warm, and I've read that some users are potentially having their micro SD cards fried, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is the reason why my micro SD card isn't functioning properly due to the heat strain. Every handheld that I've used has the micro SD card slot away from the heat exhaust, like the Switch OLED has it on the back under the stand, the Switch Lite has it on the bottom right, and the Steam Deck has it close to a vent at the bottom. I've read that manually adjusting the fan speed could help with issues regarding the micro SD cards, but let's just hope this isn't a fatal design flaw. On the back you have two extra cool looking vents, two mappable back buttons that have a tactile feel, the bumpers feel good, and the Hall sensing triggers are nice as well. When it comes to battery life on the ROG Ally, it's like any other handheld device out there. It really depends on the game that you're playing, coupled with things like the brightness, but more specifically for the ROG Ally, it really depends on what operating mode you're playing in. If you're playing a super demanding game like Cyberpunk while in turbo mode, yeah, the performance will be nice, but the battery will drain very quickly. On the other hand, if you're playing a small indie game or an older AAA title like Battlefield 3 in performance mode, you'll definitely get better battery life. So yeah, it just really depends on how much performance you want out of a game and how demanding said game is. I play a lot of AAA games, so I do find the battery life to be a bit lackluster, but for someone who plays a lot of smaller games like indie games, they might have a different opinion. The Asus ROG Ally does come with a 65 watt plug-in charger, which is nice, but there are faster options out there like today's sponsor, the Ugreen Nexode 100 watt charger. Connecting to the first or second USB-C ports on this charger gives you a max charge of 100 watts, and with the poor battery life of the ROG Ally, you'll be connecting to the charger quite often, so this will definitely help get your battery charged much quicker. Having all these extra ports available, including a USB-A, is amazing because if you're like me, you probably own multiple gaming handheld devices, so this definitely makes charging multiple devices at once convenient and fast. With its wide compatibility, it can quickly charge a laptop, or if you have a cell phone that supports quick charging, you can also use this to get your phone's battery up in no time thanks to the 100 watt output. Taking this on the go shouldn't be an issue either, as the plug is foldable and it can easily be placed in a bag, so when you're playing your ROG Ally or Steam Deck and you need to charge it, you can have it handy. And when you're having those late night gaming sessions and you end up falling asleep like I've done a few times, if your ROG Ally is plugged into a Nexode charger, it'll adjust the power output so that way it doesn't harm the battery by overloading it. And you can also sleep with peace of mind as it does have a heat dissipating design to keep it cool. Check out Ugreen Prime Day deals up to 40% off using the links down in the description. Thank you Ugreen for sponsoring this video. Now back to the Asus ROG Ally. One of the things that's really impressed me about this handheld is the speakers. They're really good and they can get really loud, and I usually keep the volume around 35 to 40 and I can hear everything just fine. But I did run into an issue where I would hear crackling or popping similar to the sound of audio clipping, but going into sound in the system settings menu and turning off spatial audio got rid of that. But overall, I'm pretty happy about the speakers on this device.
There once was a girl who snuck out of her bedroom window at night, even though her mother had told her not to.
For storage, the ROG Ally does come with a 512GB SSD and it's fast and quick, but we all know 512GB isn't really enough, especially with how large modern games have gotten. And with me not being able to expand the storage due to the slow read and write speeds, I've been struggling with storage on this handheld. Especially having Game Pass, I just want to download every game that looks interesting to me. You can swap out the internal storage for a larger SSD, and it honestly doesn't look too difficult on this handheld, so I might just end up doing that later on in the future. When it comes to the UI and operating system, the ROG Ally uses Windows 11 natively, and navigating it can be janky while in handheld mode. It's not going to be as smooth of an experience as it would be on a desktop because you'll be using the touchscreen to navigate it, and sometimes I would find myself tapping multiple times to open an app, and pressing smaller icons like the File Explorer can be a little tricky. But if you use it on a dock, it works just like it would on a desktop, which is pretty cool. It's actually a very smooth experience while in docked mode. You can watch YouTube, browse the web, and use it like a normal computer. I think the ROG Ally would have benefited greatly if it had touchpads like the Steam Deck because they make it much easier to navigate things like the desktop menus. There are rumors that Microsoft is working on a handheld version of Windows for devices like the ROG Ally, which I think would be a huge asset for this device. Okay, now for my favorite part, the games. Because this runs on Windows 11, it can play a wide variety of games because like every PC game out there is compatible with Windows, as well as the different launchers required to play some games. If you have a large Steam library, you can download Steam and play the games in your library, or if you have Xbox Game Pass, which I think is the best deal in gaming, you're able to use that on here. I was playing Halo Reach from the Master Chief Collection. I tried out this cool indie game called Bramble the Mountain King, and I got to play some Fallout 4. So yeah, if a device has Xbox Game Pass, I'm definitely going to talk about it because I think it's great for casual gamers and hardcore gamers alike. This is more of us seeing Xbox being more of a service rather than being limited to a console, which I think is pretty cool. So there's definitely not a shortage of games that you can play on the ROG Ally. Overall, I do enjoy playing games on the Asus ROG Ally, but it is unfortunate that some of the issues I have with this device are hard to ignore, like not being able to use the microSD card without worrying about it potentially getting temperature strained due to the proximity to the heat exhaust, as well as having slow read and write speeds with my microSD card. I'm really hoping that I don't have a faulty unit and that these are just issues that can be fixed with software updates. but time will tell. I still think the ROG Ally is a cool device that packs a punch, and if Asus can iron out some of these issues, it would be even better.